Hi, you're probably wondering, what is Martin dressed like that for? What on earth is going on? Well, I have to cast your mind back to December the 6th. If you watch the all-family service on December the 6th, I was doing a Sunday school story, and the story was Luke chapter 2, verses 1 to 7. I was dressed like this, and like Mary, and like various other characters. Now, if you haven't seen it, go back, watch it. It's about 25 minutes in. Some fantastic acting. So, let me take this off and explain to you why is it I'm telling you this. Well, in November, Nick offered myself and many other people the opportunity to do devotionals. I said, at the time I wasn't in a very good place, so I made a kind of excuse. I said, no, sorry, busy with Sunday school stuff, too busy, can't do it, don't want to do it, sorry. And then a few days later, God kind of just spoke to me and kind of said, no, do it, you need to do it. So I got back in touch with Nick. He offered me a couple of options. I chose one randomly, thought nothing of it, put it to the side. I then filmed all the Sunday school story, did that, thought nothing of it. And then I came back, looked at devotional time to do that, pick up the story, and lo and behold, yes, you guessed it, it was exactly the same verse. Luke chapter 2, verses 1 to 7. So, what a funny coincidence. Or was God wanting me to do something, to say something, to see something in this? So, it's a very funny coincidence. And there's a phrase that a lot of sportsmen use, and it's actually attributed to a South African golfer, Gary Player, who first said it, and he said, "It's funny, the harder I practice, the luckier I get." Now, I've kind of slightly taken that and used that sort of saying elsewhere when I've prayed for people who aren't Christians and friends and at work colleagues, and I've seen answers to prayer, and I'll say to them, "Oh, that's a great answer to prayer." And quite often they'll say, "Oh, that's nonsense, it's just a coincidence." And I say, well, it's funny because the more I pray, the more coincidences happen. And I think God does have a funny way of making coincidences happen. God makes coincidences happen a lot. So what about the story? Well, the story is the first part of the Nativity story. It's the journey to Bethlehem. And I was looking into the journey and what's the significance of it? Why did it do it, etc. It would have been from Nazareth to Bethlehem would have been about 90 miles. Now, for us now, that's nothing. It's all the transport options we've got, next to nothing, dead easy. But in them days, it would have been a pretty epic trip. It would have been unpleasant, uncomfortable, pretty frightening, really scary, and pretty dangerous, to be honest. And when you consider that Mary was pregnant, especially, that would have been, a worry in those days. Women dying in childbirth was far more frequent. So why undertake this journey? Why go on such a journey? If you look at it at the time, the scene at the time, it was here we were in an obscure Galilean town in Nazareth. The angel Gabriel comes to a young betrothed girl named Mary and just announces the fulfillment of the messianic promises are going to happen. So everything good. Why go to Bethlehem? Well, not quite. For centuries, the promise was that the Messiah would be established upon the throne of David forever. And Nazareth wasn't that place. So, just by chance, supposedly, the Roman administration at the time decided to conduct a huge census and enrolment for tax purposes, which would result in thousands of people having to go back to their ancestral homes. And lo and behold, Joseph's home was Bethlehem. Coincidence or a God plan? And of course, Bethlehem was the city of David. So, coincidence or a God plan? And if you have a little look further, I discovered that Bethlehem in Hebrew signifies house of bread. So where better for Jesus, the bread of life, to be born? Coincidence or God plan? And it's funny when you look at the story, the Roman law actually meant that Mary didn't really need to travel with Joseph for the tax census, but she was in the latter stages of what was actually a pretty controversial pregnancy, and no doubt there had been much gossip in Nazareth. So off they went on this difficult 90 miles, which would have been a pretty weary trip for anyone really, but for a heavily pregnant woman, huge undertaking. 4 to 5 days, possibly even a week, on difficult terrain, and constantly they would have been uncertain of what the future ahead was, no doubt, on their journey. And yet on they went, strong in faith, and finally they arrived, and Jesus was born in a manger, a manger that feeds animals. And again, what better place for Jesus to be born? The one who feeds the whole of the world with his love was born in a manger that feeds animals. There's something in there. Is it coincidence or a God plan? And I suspect Mary probably left in tears, saying goodbye to family and her hometown at the moment when she probably needed them most. So this was a journey that neither Mary nor Joseph wanted to take at all. And I wonder if that's like us. How many of us been forced on a journey that we didn't expect or want to take, even because of illness or loss of a job, divorce, a loved one dying, or even a pandemic. And our journeys may be painful, we may be broken-hearted or deeply discouraged along the way. We might even think God's punishing us or even abandoned us, forgotten us. But the Bible shows us, and as Noah on his ark, and Abraham and Sarah who were uprooted in retirement and told to go to the promised land, and Daniel thrown into the lion's den, just to name a few, and Joseph and Mary, they all discovered that God is faithful in that journey. God has a way of bringing good things from the pain and the heartache and the disappointment that we face in life. And that was what Mary and Joseph discovered on their journey. And I'd like to finish by recalling the words of the prophet Isaiah, who was writing to encourage the Jewish people during their own difficult journey in exile. And this is from Isaiah chapter 40, verses 28 to 31. And it reads, "Have you never heard? Have you never understood? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of all the earth. He never grows weak or weary. No one can measure the depths of his understanding. He gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. Even youth will become weak and tired, and young men will fall in exhaustion." And verse 31, this is for me the knockout verse. "But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on the wing like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint." Wow. I think Luke chapter 2 verses 1 to 7, it's just so much more than just a nativity story when you look at it and think about it. It's a story about Mary and Joseph's journey. It's a story about our journey. And I don't know what your journey is that you're on. Maybe hard, unpleasant, unplanned, even painful. But be sure to know one thing: God is faithful no matter what your journey is.